Skip it up and that up. Alright, since I know people are going to ask, this ridiculous looking game actually is not that bad. It's called Blood and Bacon, and I got it on a Steam sale for literally maybe even less than 99 cents. And it's actually pretty fun. The graphics look like PlayStation 2 upscaled. You know, don't go into this looking for a AAA experience, but if you want just mindless shooting shit fun, I think it's even multiplayer online or online multiplayer, I would say pick it up. I think it's like a couple bucks now, but even then I still think it's worth it. It looks terrible, but the controls are tight and the gameplay is actually pretty good. Anyway, moving on to the point of this video. So I haven't done a video response to a YouTuber in a very long time. And I'm going to have a trigger warning with this video. A lot of people are going to get offended by what I say. I may even sound a little bit hypocritical to things I've said in the past before. But I related so much to this video because I'm basically in the same boat as the dude who made it, Solidrev. And I've thought about the same things he's thought about in his video and the things that he discusses. The title of his video, I'll have a link to it below in the description. He says he may delete it, so if he does and it's not there, then you know why it's not there, because he said he would possibly delete it. Am I a loser for playing video games? Now, I'll start off with something a little bit different than he started off with. It was funny, before I saw his video, it was a couple days ago, maybe even yesterday, I'm not sure, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter the day I was there. I went into GameStop. I was running a whole bunch of errands. I was out and about, bouncing all over the place like a fucking pinball. And I was like, you know what? I'm passing by GameStop. I got the Xbox One S. I wanted, for some reason, even though I have it for PC, I wanted to pick up Wolfenstein: The New Order and the expansion they have for it, the standalone expansion. The Old Blood. So I go in there and I'm looking around at games, and I pick up, you know, Wolfenstein and the Wolfenstein: The New Order and the Old Blood for the Xbox One. I bring it up to the counter. Here we go. This is where I'm going to sound like a piece of shit. There was a dude in front of me, and he embodied the stereotypical nerd gamer. And I'm not even talking about appearance, because let's keep it real. I have no room to talk, okay? It's not that I'm a Greek Adonis with washboard abs. I'm a fat dude with man tits. But it wasn't even about the appearance. It was about his persona. He was like, hey, sir, how are you doing today? I was really excited to pick up some Pokemon cards. And this dude looked like he was in his, like, maybe early 20s. God damn my phone. Hold on. Let me turn it off as I'm doing this. He looked like he was in about his early 20s. He didn't look that young. Maybe he was a little bit younger, but I don't think he was insanely young. And I was looking at him and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, that's how people outside of this community look at me. He's the stereotype. I've talked about that stereotype ages ago, and I'm looking at him and I start getting real fucking uncomfortable, man, because this is where I'm going to start tying into more of what Rev was talking about, because I'm also, he just turned 35, I just turned 35, and I have a kid coming. My kid's going to be here. My fiance's pregnant, and we're expecting a son very late September, early October. And I consider, you know, I know like Rev says in his video, I'm sure you guys are going to watch it, success is subjective, but I consider I've done pretty well for myself with this channel. We know the struggles I've had before it. But I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, I'm 35. Do people look at me like him? And I'm sure people look at me because of my weight too, but I'm saying, like, beyond that, I mean, I know plenty of fat people that are super social and stuff like that. I am too, but do they look at me like a fucking gaming nerd? And I'm not, look, there's nothing wrong with being a nerd, but he was like that next level. He was almost delusional, kind of like he lived in the world of Pokemon. You had to hear him. Okay, it wasn't that it was just he was enjoying Pokemon. It was like he probably had, like, even if he had his own apartment, like Pokemon posters throughout his room. And I'm like, man, the people look at me like that. But then I took a step back and I'm like, you need to fucking chill. You're looking at yourself with the same stereotype that you hate other people looking at gamers with. You've called people out before for looking at gamers with that stereotype. Yeah, that dude, was embarrassing to witness, but he's not the norm with gaming anymore. Now, let's continue on. Yes, Rev, I wrote down notes because you said so much shit that if I try to remember it off the top of my head, I never did. Now, one of the big differences between Rev and I, and all of this has a point, is that I played games pretty much since, I think, 3 years old, maybe even younger. My parents had an Atari 2600, which is kind of ironic because my dad isn't a gamer at all. He stopped after the Atari before I was born. His games were Space Invaders, Asteroids. Once they got more complex than that, my dad was like, I'm out. He just was like, nah, I'm good. You want to play him here? I'll get you a ColecoVision. Rev started gaming. You'll hear his video. Actually, it was kind of surprising, man. He started gaming when his wife had his daughter. She gave birth to their daughter. So he really looked at gaming as a kid or even teenager as it was for losers. And when so you guys now that are in your late teens, early 20s, you got lucky. Now, we were lucky too. People my age who were 35-ish, around that age, like 30 to 35, because we grew up in the golden era of gaming where everything was revolutionary and exciting. But how you guys are lucky is that gaming is more mainstream now than it was. Okay. Now you'll see, it was so, like when I was a kid, man, you would never, ever, ever, ever catch females, at least in my school, in my grammar school and stuff like that, never catch females playing games. It was considered a hobby for young males. Okay. Like, yeah, like when my cousins would come over, they were both girls, and we would play Nintendo, and they had a Nintendo at their house, but their Nintendo, like, honest to God, I would go there. They had like 4 fucking games for it, and there was like a layer of dust on it that it was like an inch thick. Like, they never touched it, because gaming was something much different back then. And Rev said the same thing, and this whole story, like I said, it ties into something. Rev said that he thought games back then were for losers. And even though I loved gaming, and like I said, I grew up with it from basically almost since I was in fucking diapers. Actually, I may have literally been in diapers. It was looked at the same way. And because of that, there were times I would get out of gaming. Like I remember I unplugged my Super Nintendo and my Genesis. I put them in the closet, and I was all about music. And one, because I went through a phase where I really enjoyed music, but I was like, oh man, I don't want to be seen as a gamer. So I put the consoles in my closet, and then I would walk around. I remember the summer of when I was in 6th grade. This is 92, 93, and I was listening to Dr. Dre's The Chronic on my Discman. It was partially one because I love music, but partially also I didn't want to be seen as a gamer. Now I would go back into it. There would be a game that come out. Like I remember 8th grade, I really wanted to play Donkey Kong Country, so I'd whip out my SNES. But I kind of would duck in and out of it. All right, and it was because of that stigma. And my point being is that I understand why Rev has that stigma, because we were the first generation to grow up with gaming being mainstream. And it was a new thing, so the generation that was older than us was like, what fucking games? You're sitting there moving pixels on a screen? Ugh. And especially if you were an adult gamer before like PlayStation era, or even like Sega Genesis made gaming more mainstream for more older kids and adults. But if you played games as an adult before the PlayStation, and especially before the Genesis, people were like, yeah, that guy's creepy. Like he probably wants to like kidnap young kids and take them home. So the image of gaming when we were growing up was very negative, and I could see why that was in his head. And it was weird. I got back into gaming with like the N64, and then a PlayStation had Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But because of that stigma, partially because of the stigma, I should say, other things happened in life too, I got back out of gaming again. with the 6th generation, I had a PlayStation 2 on and off for like a few months of the 6th gen. But again, I was doing stuff with music. I was doing stuff with acting. I was like, yeah, I'm too good for gaming. I don't know if that's the right term to use. I'm sure people are going to lose their shit that I use that term. But that's how I felt. And it was that stigma that got instilled for me from my generation growing up with gaming and people being like, oh, games are for fucking weirdos. Why do you want to sit there moving shit around on a screen? And because gaming was new and a lot of people didn't understand it. And that's why Rev and I had that you're a loser if you game, even though I did game a lot, minus, like I said, a few hiatuses. You're a loser if you game because people don't understand it. And that's why I think partially Rev has, this thing like, should I stop gaming because I look like a loser? Now, an interesting thing Rev says is he's like, yeah, I don't care what people think. I'm not saying this to be a dick, Rev. You have to obviously care what people think, because then you say right after, I don't want my son to look at me like I was a fucking dork. If you game, first off, Rev, I know you work a night shift, okay? I've worked a night shift, and I know how much downtime there is. I'm not talking you game at your job, but I'm saying like, I guess I think you've mentioned on Twitter that even on your nights off, you stay up at night because you don't want to just switch your schedule around because, if you sleep at night on your days off, which I know is virtually impossible to do, to just go back and forth, you'd be screwed up for work. So you stay up at night and I'm sure you have a metric shit ton of downtime. You're not going to mow the lawn at 2 a.m. But I understand why you game. Hell, I remember I worked a 3rd shift, man, and I used to do IT and networking shit, and 99% of the time was downtime. So I had a PSP and I would play God of War. Because there was literally, you would have some paperwork to do, you do your paperwork, and that maybe would take like 2 hours, then you'd have 6 hours. Maybe you would get a couple calls to fix, there would be some issue and you would get, paged to fix it. But beyond that, you had a bunch of downtime. But anyway, I mean, my point being though, I understand why you game. You probably game more than I do, even with my YouTube channel, because you're up nights sometimes when you're off, and obviously your wife is sleeping and your kids are sleeping, and like I said, you can't do things like mow the lawn, so you have more time to game. Now, what I was saying was, he said I care about what people, he doesn't care about what people think, but obviously you do, because you don't want your son to look at you said in your video, as a loser. But your son's not going to look at you as a loser if you spend time with him, if you took care of him, everything financially was straight. If you're not paying your fucking bills, yes, then you're a loser because you want a game instead. If you're not spending time with your son because you want to play Shadow of Mordor more and you're ignoring your son to play a video game, then you're a loser. But your son's not going to look at you as a loser because of your hobby. You mentioned your dad too, and how your dad was always doing something productive, or your dad was, even if he had projects, it was always, something around the house or whatever his hobbies were. It always seemed like it was productive. Your dad, and my dad too, was from a different era. He didn't have gaming. Maybe your dad would be a gamer if games were around in the 60s and 70s, but he didn't have them. So when you grew up, same with my dad, he didn't game. Like I said, he played Atari 2600. Once it got past Asteroids, he was done. He was always doing other shit because he came up in a different era where there wasn't the same technologies that we had when we were growing up. But my dad, too, as busy as he was, there would be sometimes I would go for weeks without seeing my dad because he'd be away on trips for business. He'd be down in the city. I remember after the first terrorist attack down in New York City, he was there helping them fix their communication systems after the first bomb in 1993 blew up in the World Trade Center. But when he had downtime, his hobby, like our hobby is gaming when we have downtime, was to listen to music. But because music seems more socially accepted, obviously he got no grief for it. You see what I'm saying? Why does it matter what we fill up? Or everyone has, I don't care how busy you are, you still once in a while have downtime. Unless, Rev, you're jogging around in a skirt and playing a tea party with yourself, and I know people are going to get at me for that, but hey, it's true. What does it really matter what you're doing? And I know you kind of mentioned that, but you have to stop looking at gaming as a nerd thing and just realize it's just you're a different era than your father. Everyone has a hobby. Everyone has an interest. We got to stop judging each other, even though I kind of just did judge people. If you play Tea Party with yourself and you're a grown man and you wear a skirt while doing it, have at it. You know what's funny, too, is that I very rarely have time to game. You know, I think the thing that anytime someone hears that someone's a gamer, they think that they play games like 40 hours a week. I wish I played games 5 hours a week. Honestly, especially now, I mean, obviously you're seeing gameplay right now, but, you know, I go back to live footage tomorrow, especially because I'm going over mostly 99% of live footage. If I have 2 hours to game a week, that's a lot. So my point being with that is, obviously I'm handling my shit. I'm doing other stuff around the house. I'm running errands. I'm getting ready for the baby coming. Why should I be judged again for my hobby? Obviously, it's something I enjoy. I'm handling my responsibilities. Again, it's just a way to unwind. You know, I still had that thing pinging in my head on and off where, Rich, maybe, you know, people are looking at you as a loser for gaming. You're 35. Maybe, you know, you should think about it and maybe go on to another hobby. But I'm like, really? And what cemented me into realizing that I will always in some way, shape, or form be gaming is in the bedroom, my fiance is the queen of the television. And one thing I despise more than any form of entertainment is I hate with a passion, a motherfucking passion. I cannot stand reality shows. I hate them. The only one I could tolerate watching is the shows from Gordon Ramsay because I love watching him lose his shit, like Kitchen Nightmares and Hell's Kitchen. Like, I just him telling people to fuck off and screaming in their face to me with his flock of seagulls hair makes me fucking crack up. I think it's crazy. But beyond that, I cannot stand reality shows. She loves reality shows and she's the queen of the television. So guess what? I lose. So if I don't find another way to entertain myself, whether it be going on Twitter or something like that, I'm SOL, or I have to go downstairs and do something else. So she was watching, this was a few days ago, Big Brother, and I hate that show. I don't understand how people like Big Brother to me is basically high school for adults. You have a bunch of grown-ass people ranging from their like early 20s to like mid 50s, even older, who they're going on there to talk shit about each other, make enemies with certain people and friends with other people like they're in high school, create these cliques to try to get other people booted out of the house. I don't understand how that's entertainment. But whatever the case may be, my fiance loves that show. I'd rather stick glass in my eyes than watch it. And I'm sitting in bed and she's watching. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. So you know what I did? And it made me fucking so thankful that I'm still gaming. I whipped out my 3DS, which I don't have time to use often, but I do use it more than surprisingly I thought I would. And I was playing Super Mario World from the Virtual Console for the 3D. And I was playing Streets of Rage. They have the Streets of Rage 2. They have the 3D remaster of it where it actually takes advantage of the 3DS's 3D screen. And I was having a blast. And it saved me. That show was going to make me lose my mind. I'm like, this is the stupidest. I don't feel like getting out of bed. I'm tired. I want to get ready to go to sleep. But yet I'm not tired yet. I don't want to. I couldn't fall asleep yet. And I was like, this is the perfect example. And Rev, I know you won't play things like Super Mario World. I get that's, not your thing. But in my mind, I was like, damn, this is a perfect example as to why I still game. I rather game than watch a stupid fucking show. That's the thing that always cracks me up, too, and I'm kind of going out of order here. I had this topic later on in my notes, is People will consider other people losers for gaming, but they'll sit on their phone for hours upon hours upon hours on end and play Candy Crush or some other stupid ass fucking deep as a puddle of piss game for like hours. And they're like, oh, I don't have time to play games. But I'm like, but you had 3 hours to play Candy Crush. Okay. Or I don't have time to game, but you had 4 hours to sit your ass in front of a fucking TV and watch Netflix. Or I don't have time to game, but you have time to go to a friend's house and play fantasy football, which in my mind is the adult equivalent of dudes playing with action figures. Like, it's like, that's okay because it's football, and football is for men with big penises, and it's masculine. But, you know, you'll do that and make like a whole day event out of it. I've known men that have done that. But picking up a controller for a couple hours a week makes somebody a loser. And that's because of that stigma that Rev and I were brought up with. We were told and brainwashed and conditioned to think that gaming, because it's this new weird thing, is for losers. And doing anything, and you shouldn't have time to do that, even though you could have time to watch hours upon hours of television, or have time to go play fantasy football, or have time to play games on your phone, even though you're still gaming, but because it's on your phone, people are like, oh, it's on a phone, so it's socially acceptable. Look, I'll end this video with this. Rev, you said, what will my son look at me like for gaming? That's all on you. You could hate gaming. You could have never picked up a controller in your life. And if you were a piece of shit father, I'm not saying you are. Matter of fact, I'm pretty damn sure that you're not. Your son would still think you were a fucking loser. It's about your character and who you are as a person. If you're there for your son and you're a good father and you take time to hang out with your son and bond with him, and you're being responsible as a man and paying your bills and all of those things, your kid's always going to look up to you. Gaming is not what it was. I mean, look at Terry Crews, the guy from the Old Spice commercials. He just built a computer with his son. Put 2 GTX 1080s in it. He built a beast-ass machine and he loves it, man. And he loves playing games. But what he's also doing is incorporating it and making a bonding experience with his son. And what that also shows is how mainstream gaming has become. Where an adult, and Terry Crews, again, he's like oozing fucking testosterone, is down with gaming. And he plays games with his kids. He even bought a Vive, an HTC Vive. Glad his works, mine doesn't, by the way. That's why I never did a review on it, and I'm still like back and forth with HTC on getting an exchange, but that's a different story. But you see what I'm saying? That's a different point. That's for a whole other video. But you see what I'm saying, though? Look, I understand, man, and it was a struggle for me when I saw that dude at GameStop, where you could see he was an adult, but he was like fucking creeping me out with the whole Pokemon thing. And again, it's not Pokemon in and of itself, but how weird this guy was. It got under my skin too. But we need to push that brainwashing that you and I experienced when we were kids, Rev. Put that shit to the side and realizing gaming is just a hobby, like people who watch Netflix, like people who play fantasy football, like people who fucking collect stamps, whatever the case may be, and just realize it's a hobby. It's what you do with that hobby that people will judge your character as a person. If you were like one of my ex-girlfriends who her ex-boyfriend would choose to play World of Warcraft than see her naked, then you got issues. But you playing games on your downtime because you work a third shift and you're up at night on your days off when your family's sleeping does not make you a loser. And you have to remember, it's just a form of entertainment. As long as you discipline yourself and you aren't out of control and you aren't playing games 24/7 instead of handling your other responsibilities as what you need to handle as a man, you're good, dude. Don't let the brainwashing you and I experienced screw up something that you really enjoy. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.